I'm Mark Seifter.
And I'm Linda Zayas Palmer.
And this is Arcane Mark.
Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Welcome to Class Chat Summoner, in which we will be chatting about this wonderful class featured in Pathfinder Secrets of Magic.
Is it the Summoner?
Yes. The other one was the Magus. We did that last time.
I would be surprised if Class Chat Summoner was about a different class.
I mean, it would be very poorly named at that point.
At that point, it's like, why are people even watching the show? It's just randomly giving you something that is not what the title of the episode says.
I mean, some people like to live dangerously, I guess.
Well, there you go. And you can be a summoner and live dangerously, too.
Well, what does it mean to be a summoner? If you're a summoner, you can magically beckon a powerful being called an Eidolon to your side, serving as the mortal conduit that anchors it to the world. Whether your Eidolon is a friend, a servant, or even a personal god, your connection to it marks you as extraordinary, shaping the course of your life dramatically. If you're a summoner, your key ability score is Charisma. You've got plenty of hit points, 10 plus your con modifier. There's a good reason you're going to want plenty of hit points that we'll get to a little later. And in terms of proficiencies, you're going to be trained in Perception and Reflex saves, expert in Fortitude and Will, trained in one or more skills determined by your Eidolon, so your Eidolon's going to have a big influence there as well, and then trained in 3 plus int modifier additional skills. You've also got simple weapons, unarmed attack, unarmored defense, and spell attack rolls based on and spell DCs based on your spellcasting tradition as determined by your Eidolon. This is another one of those classes with a large degree of flexibility, which again we'll be getting into in just a moment.
That's right.
If you are a summoner, you and your Eidolon fight together as one. You can rely on your Eidolon for mundane challenges, saving your spells for when they're needed most. During social encounters, your powerful personality allows you to take the lead when negotiating. You and your Eidolon might engage with others in different ways, but even if your guardian remains silent, its presence reminds you, those around you, of your power, and certainly can lead to some interesting role-playing moments when people are like, why is there a purple dragon in my house? While exploring, whether you remain on alert for the presence of strange magic or keep an eye out for trouble, you and your Eidolon act together to cover more ground, pool your knowledge, and leverage each other's abilities. In downtime, you might attempt to learn more about the nature of your Eidolon and delve deeper into the secrets of its magical tradition to learn a spell, craft magic items with your Eidolon's help, or make allies using your social skills. You might rely on your Eidolon to accomplish physical tasks while you handle the mental one, develop attitudes and mannerisms in line with your Eidolon's way of thinking, even as your nature shapes its behavior. Consider your Eidolon a close friend, a guiding figure, a protector, or a rival bound to you. Others probably feel safe with you and your Eidolon at their side. Expect that since you know information about your Eidolon, you might know details about other sorts of strange monsters, or view you with awe or fear because of the powerful, strange creature that accompanies you. So you can see, like, with the way that the Eidolon is characterized, this isn't like an animal companion. This is a companion who is, you know, and another fellow intelligent creature that you're going to have a relationship with, and that relationship really undergirds what your experience as a summoner is.
That's right. So, I GM'd Pathfinder First Edition before the Advanced Player's Guide playtest, but the first character I played as a PC was a playtest summoner. So I played a summoner in the playtest for Pathfinder 2nd Edition and the final version named Faye, who I'm playing in a game that Linda is playing, or a Life Oracle. It really helps keeping me alive in there.
You also brought a summoner to the first game that first edition summoner, the first game I ever GM'd.
Yeah, that was also my first Pathfinder PC.
You didn't have a PFS one before that?
In an Adventure Path.
Oh, an Adventure Path, okay. Fair
also, did we do PFS before we did Council of Thieves? I can't remember anymore.
I have to look at the dates.
But my first long-running PC was... I mean, certainly I had played some smattering.
We're talking over a decade ago. I'm not sure exactly which year was which. They were close.
No, I started Pathfinder Society in Season 0, but it was in 3.5 at the time. So it would be close, and I definitely played a couple of games with my cleric. In any case...
So what's the deal with this Eidolon and the mechanics?
So you've got this Eidolon, like you said, it's not a minion. It's like it's a partner, and it shares a lot of things with you because your life force is a conduit for the Eidolon into this world. It's something that would normally be disembodied, but you give it a body thanks to you. And so basically you can choose its appearance in general form, and your connection with the Eidolon takes the form of a sigil that appears on each of your bodies, and it glows with light. You can't really cover or disguise it. It shines through obfuscation, so people who can see you will always know, hey, you're connected to this other thing.
Yes. And with the Eidolon, one of the flexibilities about this, which is implied by the earlier section, is that the manifestation of the Eidolon and a lot of other things you do are tied to the Eidolon's tradition, which could be arcane, divine, occult, or primal.
That's right.
So the occult Eidolon covers more of the space that you would have seen like in a spiritualist in Pathfinder with Phantoms in Pathfinder First Edition. So this sort of covers the thematic space of both summoner and spiritualist.
That's right. So you manifest your Eidolon. It can stay within 100 feet of you. If it has to go beyond that, or you're reduced to 0 hit points, it dissolves, and it takes 3 actions to get it back. That's basically what happens.
So your Eidolon is not
a minion. It then takes a single action right when it shows up.
So your Eidolon is not a minion or a summoned creature. You two have a shared pool of actions, and multiple attack penalty and everything else, and you decide who's doing what with those actions in the way that's most advantageous to you.
Plus, you have Act Together, where one of you takes between a single action and a 3-action activity, and the other one does a single action.
Yes.
And because you have that, that means that you're going to get a total... Essentially, you're going to get a total of 4 actions that are not divided in a 2-2 split.
Yes.
Because, well, we give big shot spells to both the summoner and the Eidolon sometimes, and double casting big shot spells is very big shot.
Yeah. So that wouldn't be that would unbalance things, but this allows you to have some more flexibility and mobility with how you move things about. It also lets you use separate exploration activities as you're traveling about, which is handy.
That's very, very handy for one person to be doing.
Oh yeah, I'm going to cover 2 different things. I'm going to be checking for traps, and I'm also going to be like doing this, that, or the other thing. So.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Searching for magic.
You also get share senses, where you spend an action to project your senses into your Eidolon to see through the Eidolon, and then you can dismiss the effect. And then finally, you share hit points, like Linda said. That means you share healing too. And if you're hit by the same effect, you don't take double damage or double healing. You do take the worst save if you both had to roll a save. So if there's a fireball and you completely dodge out of the way of the fireball, but your Eidolon does not, you still get hit once, but you're not going to get hit twice.
So the greater amount applies when you're both getting hit, but the greater amount also applies when you're both hit by an area healing effect. So,
which usually it's the same, but not with Linda's Oracle buffing up the amount that the healing does to.
It's possible to be different, and it is when in the game we're playing.
So. The main thing is just that you don't wind up getting dinged by getting hit both times. And that makes sense, right? If one person completely jumps out of the way of the fireball and the other one's just like, duh, and fails the reflex save and is standing in it, you still take the damage.
Yes.
So it's mostly an advantage over having 2 characters that share a hit point pool by a lot, but it's a disadvantage over against area effects over only having 1 token on the map. There's a way that you can turn it into a massive advantage later on with a feat. So when it comes to gear, your Eidolon doesn't really use gear except for up to 2 Eidolon items. They cannot wear or use magic items except for items with the Eidolon trait.
But they gain bonuses based on the items that you have invested.
That's
so they
correct.
can get the item bonuses to perceptions and skills from what you've got invested. And they also increase their item bonus to AC based on the potency rune or braces of armor that you have. And they gain saves from your resilient rune or braces of armor. So basically like... So
and their strikes benefit from weapons or hand rounds of mighty strikes. As Linda can attest, that my... Summoner definitely carries whatever the crappy +1 striking weapon that nobody wants is.
Whatever the weapon is of a type that nobody else can use, you carry.
But that has a really good magic runes on it, so that my Eidolon could take it.
So basically, it's like if you have any of these sort of basic stat increase item, or not stat, basic like number increase items that are baked into the math of the game. If you've got it, your Eidolon's got it too.
Right. So if a speed thing happens, like slowed, stunned, quicken, or something else that changes the number of actions to 1, then it actually affects them both. If you both have slowed, like one of you has slowed 1 and one of you has slowed 2, you take the worse, or the more extreme version. So you would take the slowed 2. And this is not to say that restrictions on what kind of actions you're allowed to take will apply to both. For instance, if your Eidolon gets trapped in a web and is immobilized, that doesn't mean the summoner can't.
It's also
move.
immobilized, yeah, but
right,
yeah.
And the GM resolves the situation that's unclear.
So players generally decide how the summoner and Eidolon both acted. Usually they're working together unless the player decides it'd be interesting to have them have like kind of a conflict. But ultimately, if there's a conflict, then the summoner wins out. So like if the Eidolon is confused or controlled, then the summoner can say, okay, yeah, I'm just going to use all those actions so the Eidolon can't do things that we do not want the Eidolon to be doing.
But if you are confused or controlled, you would use all of your shared actions preventing your Eidolon from acting.
Yes.
So
if there's a thing where, like, the summoner really wants to do one thing and Eidolon really wants to do another because there's magic that's disrupting their connection, then it's always the summoner who determines what happens.
So you get summoner spellcasting. It's basically a spontaneous version of the bounded spellcasting that we talked about last time with the Magus. Uses charisma and the tradition based on your friendly Eidolon. Difference here is that all of your spells are signature spells, but you don't have that many, but they all are signature spells.
Yes.
So the few that you have, you can cast at either of the 2 levels that are available. Because just like Magus, it starts at 1, then goes to 2, and then is 1 below like a cleric or a druid until level 4. At which point at level 5, that's when you lose for your first level spells, but are now no longer behind a cleric. On your 3rd level spells, you both have would have 2 at level 5.
Yeah, and then like every other level, you get more spells.
Yep.
And it flips, instead of having like 2 fourths at 10th and 11th, and 2 fourths and 2 fifths, you have 2 fifths and 2 sixths.
Yep, and the cleric gets up a little bit of an advantage at the even level on that extra spell level, but then you're tied again on your top level when you move up.
And you've got cantrips,
Bounded
which work exactly as you would expect.
It sure does. And your spell repertoire is different than most because all of your spells are signature spells, but you don't have a lot, like I said. You can swap them around like anybody else. You have link spells. Your link spells are your special focus spells. And you can refocus by connecting with your Eidolon, like playing with your Eidolon or having a conversation. And there's a section later in the book that talks about different ideas of things you can do for the refocus with your summoner. They work like every other focus spell. Except that they're linked cantrips, which are similarly to how like bards and witches have certain focused cantrips. So do summoners, and you get the boost Eidolon link cantrip, which can buff your Eidolon's capabilities. It can be useful. Like don't put too much weight in thinking that you always need to use boost Eidolon every turn, because there's actually a lot of kinds of turns you can make that are stronger than a turn with boost Eidolon, but it's handy in certain situations.
And like in cantrips in general, like here's your thing that you can just do.
I think I've cast boost Eidolon like twice.
Yeah, you haven't used it that much compared to other stuff. I mean, fair enough though. You also have like an animal companion at the same time, so your turns are really complicated. But thanks for the subs, Rexa and Numbat.
Thanks so much. So, moving on, you've got your evolution feat, which is just an extra evolution feat at first level that you just get. Most casters, even bounded casters, don't necessarily get an extra feat, although, you know, Magus and Summoner have a ton of stuff at first level both. So that's your first level. You get a lot of things. Also, your Eidolon, we did not add, but is true, has like a special ability that it comes with right away.
Well, we'll get to that. We're kind of doing some of the basics.
So then you're going to get skill feats, summoner feats, general feats, all those kind of things.
At 3rd level, you get shared vigilance. You and your Eidolon both have your proficiency rank and perception increased to expert.
That's right. And that's when you get your unlimited signature spells. I mean, it's still limited because you don't have that many spells, but it's
still,
also unlimited. At 5th level, your Eidolon becomes an expert at unarmed attacks.
Also, when you get your ability boost is something we usually just skip over because it's the same for everybody else. But in this case, your Eidolon gets 4 ability boosts at the same time that you do. Following
you can pick
the same
whatever
rules.
it wants. It can be different.
Mm-hmm.
At 7th level, your Eidolon gains a special symbiosis ability that is usually really cool for each Eidolon type and weapon specialization. At 9th level, you gain expert spellcasting and shared reflexes, where you both get an expert reflex save. At 11th level, the Eidolon gains unarmored expert defense. At 11th level, you gain expert in simple weapons.
Mm-hmm.
And also, 11th level, there's a lot of proficiency increases. That's when you become twin juggernauts. Your life force is combined in a way where you both become masters, and your success becomes a critical success on the save for both.
At 13th level, your unarmored defense increases to expert with defensive robes. Mm-hmm. Then you get Eidolon unarmed mastery. Unarmed mastery. Your Eidolon's proficiency rank with unarmed attacks increases to master. So in general,
at the same level.
Yeah. So in general, like the Eidolon's combat capacity is increasing faster than yours, which makes sense because your Eidolon's the one who you're more of like the spellcaster, and your Eidolon is more of the smacker. Although the Eidolon could do some spellcasting too.
That's true.
We'll
and you pick up weapon specialization there at 13th level as well. Mm-hmm. Then at 15th level, Eidolon picks up greater weapon specialization. You guys get shared resolve, basically becoming master in will saves, and a success is a critical success as your minds link to protect each other. 17th level, the Eidolon gains the Transcendence ability and also basically gets an Apex item.
Mm-hmm. Or at least the ability score part of it, yeah.
Yes. Essentially, it doesn't have to be the same one you pick, so you can pick Charisma and still give strength to your Eidolon or whatever. And you get Master Spellcaster. 19th level, the Eidolon becomes Master at Unarmored Defense. Mm-hmm. And Instant Manifestation, which lets you single action manifest your Eidolon instead of 3 actions. Plus, there's a definition of the Tandem trait. The Tandem trait means that you and your Eidolon are both doing a thing during that action. And so you can't pick a tandem action for one of the actions within a tandem trait because one of them is entirely you, one of them is entirely your Eidolon. So act together is tandem. And there's another feat later, Tandem Stride, where both you and the Eidolon for one action both move. You couldn't act together and pick Tandem Stride as one of the two things because that's not purely you or purely your Eidolon, it's both.
Yeah. There's also the evolution trait for feats, which basically just means they're feats that affect your Eidolon.
Your Eidolon evolves!
Yes, indeed.
Alright, so speaking of Eidolon, there's a lot of stuff here that is about your Eidolon that comes up next. This is a very long section because there's quite a few different kinds of Eidolons. It talks about like the lore of what arcane Eidolons usually are formed out of, divine, occult, and primal. It talks about starting proficiencies.
Yeah, Eidolons can have all sorts of Eidolons can have all sorts of different manifestations and appearances, and it really depends upon what their type is that informs what some of the most common appearances are. But there's still a fair bit of flexibility in describing what your Eidolon might look like.
That's right. It shares your skill proficiencies. Its starting proficiencies are the same as a summoner, but it goes up differently as you saw. It's got some ability scores. It starts with 2 unarmed attacks. Each Eidolon suggests some attacks that might have. You can kind of pick. And they might look like swords or weapons, but they're unarmed attacks, always. They're an extension.
Yes.
They're an extension of the manifested Eidolon. They don't use actual weapons. And so your primary attack is your choice of 1d8 with either disarm, non-lethal, shove, or trip, 1d6 fatal d10, 1d6 forceful and sweep, or 1d6 deadly d8 and finesse. Your secondary attack is 1d6 Eidolon finesse.
Yes. And if the Eidolon gains the ability to cast spells from some other feat or ability, it doesn't have like its own DC, spell DC, and attack modifier you have to worry about. Just use yours. Your Eidolon shares, if you have Eidolon link spells, your Eidolon shares your focus pool, but your Eidolon can't refocus or cast your spells or things like that.
You need to interact with your Eidolon to do it. You're kind of both working together to refocus. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, Eidolon entries will tell you all the information that we just talked about. What tradition they're from,
what traits they have, what their alignment is, what the home plane is that the Eidolon comes from, how big the Eidolon is, what kind of attacks they might have, and options of different arrays of ability scores and defenses and things like that the Eidolon would have. And those defenses are sort of like a pseudo armor, you might think about it, because it's got like, here's your item bonus to AC and your dexterity cap. So it's pretty similar in that regard. The skills the Eidolon teaches you, the any special senses the Eidolon might have, what language the Eidolon starts with, how fast it is, and like the special abilities that Eidolons start with and continue to gain throughout the Transcendence and Symbiosis classes.
That's right. So angels are divine angels that are from one of the good outer planes, Nirvana, Elysium, or Heaven. They're medium or small with fist, wing, or weapon-shaped unarmed attacks. They're either an angelic avenger, which is strength-based, or an angelic emissary, which has better dexterity and charisma. Their skills for you and them are diplomacy and religion with dark vision, the celestial language, and some cool abilities. Hallowed strikes, you do 1 good damage, so that's going to do a bunch of extra damage to creatures with a weakness to good. And you can make non-lethal attacks without taking a penalty. 7th level Traveler's Aura, which is similar to an Astral Diva. You can be protected from severe heat and cold, and the Eidolon is never flat-footed to creatures inside the aura of lower level. When you gain the Transcendence ability at level 17, it evolves the aura to become the full aura of an Astral Diva with protection from environmental damage from any plane, including severe and extreme heat and cold, although not incredible.
Also,
more unusual dangers.
Also at 17th level, you get Angelic Mercy. Your Eidolon can, once per day, cast each of Remove Curse, Remove Disease, Remove Fear, and Remove Paralysis as 9th level divine spells. Very useful for getting rid of those effects.
Hey, 4 9th level spells, I'm not going to say no. So Anger Phantom is very angry.
Yes.
It's a cult from the ethereal plane, medium or small, because it depends on in life where you are. Very angry.
Oh, I see the Anger Phantom here on this page.
It's very angry. They often have fists or tendrils of some kind, in case they have become kind of more aberrant in their anger.
They're definitely a cult because they're phantoms.
Oh yeah. They are either a wrathful berserker, which is more strength based, or an enraged assassin, which still has pretty good strength but also has dexterity.
Yes. Their initial ability that they have is the Furious Strike ability. They channel their anger for 2 actions into a Furious attack, which makes a melee attack that counts as 2 attacks for the multiple attack penalty. And if it hits, it deals an extra die of weapon damage and 1 more damage. And that continues to scale up based on your level to hit harder and harder and harder.
Unsurprisingly, they have intimidation and occultism for their skills. At 7th level, they can enter a seething frenzy where their AC goes way down, but they gain temporary hit points, and they also gain the benefits of Boost Eidolon throughout, which gives them a bunch of additional damage, which combines with their other additional damage. And then Anger Aura, where everything is so angry around them, including allies, that it lowers resistances of... It's really great if your party doesn't really have a lot of things with resistances, and your enemies do, because it lowers it by, like, potentially up to, like, around 8.
Yes.
And when you're lowering resistances by 8... It's a 20-foot
Anger Aura. You can try to stay out of that if you've got resistances
but,
you want
like,
to
plus 8 damage against enemies with resistances is not bad.
That is true.
So Beast Eidolon, that's the one that that Faye, my summoner, has, is a Dwemer Cat Eidolon. It is a manifestation of life force. They're primal. They've got intimidation and nature. They're medium. They often have claws, jaws, fangs, hoof.
This
horns,
is also often
like
where
that.
you'll see the god colors of Sarkoris having beast.
For sure,
Eidolons,
for sure. And you can be a brutal,
like a certain famous feathered bear.
Yes, you can be a brutal beast who is strength-based, or a fleet beast, which is more dexterity-based. And your language is Sylvan. You've got Beast Charge, where the beast rushes forward. It's like a sudden charge, but actually gets a +1 to their attack roll if they move far enough on it. So
I agree
it's better
with
than
that.
sudden
Angry
charge.
Assassin is scary.
Then there's Primal Roar, where you're gonna do a 2-action to demoralize everything. Now, you don't have the greatest charisma, most likely, with your beast, because both of them are 10, but there's ways to build it up so that you can really demoralize a lot of things. And it's not the same as the attempt of your summoner to demoralize, so you get all the demoralize.
Yes.
Whirlwind Maul, Which
2 actions to attack, make a melee unarmed strike against up to 4 enemies in reach.
Yes. Don't increase your multiple attack penalty until you're done mauling everything.
Yes.
So Construct Eidolon is like the most build an Eidolon because it's a construct and you're building it out of astral essence. So it's arcane and it's got often as a bludgeoning fist as its weapon. You can be a warrior construct with more strength based or a scout construct that's more dexterity based. And they have the ability Construct Heart, which gives them, despite being connected to your life force and so not being completely non-living, they do get a bonus on saves against a bunch of stuff. And they also, it's very hard to make them bleed off astral essence. At 7th level, they just get an extra evolution feat that you can retrain with only a single day of downtime by crafting on it. And at 17th level, they get
even more.
Even more.
Yes.
A higher level evolution feat. Same situation.
Many summoners select ever vigilant senses for this ability.
And for the lower level one, they often choose Eidolon's Wrath. It just gives a default in case you're like, oh my gosh, this is so much. Demon Eidolons are born of sin because all demons are, whether they're an Eidolon or not. Just like all angels are emissaries, whether they're an Eidolon or not. They're divine, chaotic evil from the abyss.
And it's sort of like, you know, it doesn't mean that the demon isn't trying to tempt you into sin, but the demon's, like, not gonna be actively sabotaging you. The demons decided to work together with you for whatever that means for your soul.
Yep, it says the demons are inherently untrustworthy, but your demon Eidolon has reached an accord with you and generally keeps it. That doesn't mean your Eidolon isn't actively working to bring your life deeper into an associated sin. That's what it says there. So, yeah, they've got a sin that you're going to pick. Wrecker demons have 18 strength. Their strength-based Tempter demons have higher dexterity and very high charisma.
Yes.
You've got intimidation and religion on your demon.
So that high charisma goes together well with that intimidation, for sure.
Yes, and you've got demonic strikes to do evil damage, and you get extra versatileness in your attacks. Visions of sin, where you are going to project sin into the minds of others, which will torment and confuse them. They have to make a will save, and they're very likely to not be able to use to make reactions. If they're evil, they actually take a penalty.
There's a side here too that talks about what do demon eidolons look like. They could look like some of the more traditional demons that you might be used to, like succubi, wrecker demons, abracindalus, things like that. Or they could, the abyss is varied, and it doesn't mean that mortals have certainly not documented every type of demon that could exist. So there's also a lot of flexibility there in terms of what do you want it to look like. Are you going to come up with a new demon associated with a particular sin?
And their Blasphemous Decree gives Divine Decree 9th level, and then Divine Decree 10th level. At level 19, which is very blasphemous.
Indeed. The Devotion Phantom Eidolon, like the other phantoms, is a cult. A lost soul that's unable to escape the mortal world due to a strong sense of duty and undying devotion or need to complete an important task.
That's right. So this is kind of like Estra, the old iconic spiritualist. And so you're medium or small again. You've got a fist if you're kind of more human-like, or a tendril if you've kind of become more ectoplasmy, aberration-y in your time out there. Then you've got either a strength-based stalwart guardian or a dex-based swift protector. You've got medicine and occultism. And your abilities are dutiful retaliation, where as a reaction, if some enemy hits you with a strike and deals damage to you, and your Eidolon is within 15 feet of you, your Eidolon attacks because they're angry that
even
that
if 15 feet there is not within the Eidolon's normal reach.
It just kind of gooily extends out.
Yes.
And attacks.
Steadfast Devotion. The Eidolon gains a +2 circumstance bonus to saving throws against mental effects and critically succeed when they would otherwise succeed. And then if you have the Shared Resolve class feature, once you have that, then critical failures against mental effects become failures. So the Devotion Phantom, the Devotion Phantom is not easy to sway against you.
Yeah, really, really isn't. And then Devotion Aura at level 17 is whenever one of your Eidolon's allies within the Aura takes damage, you can choose to reduce the damage by your Eidolon's con modifier, which is up to 5, and then you lose a number of hit points equal to half the amount rounded down. So what you can do is make other people take 5 less damage while you take 2 damage a bunch of times, and you can choose each time whether to do that.
Yes.
Dragon! Everyone likes dragons,
Yeah,
right?
like Tuku.
Yes, dragon is really cool. They're arcane. They can have, they are astral dragons. They often have claws, jaws, horn, tail, or wing, like normal dragons.
They might be marauding, where they're strong and have a lot of constitution. Or they might be cunning with more dex and intelligence and a bit more charisma as well.
Yes, definitely. So that's the cunning dragon is kind of more like the spellcastery dragons from the bestiary, whereas the marauding dragon is kind of the default.
And unsurprisingly, their language is a lot of these have had the language. Yeah, you know, some common language that was in the area.
I mean, that's the phantoms. And the construct, but they've got draconic.
Draconic. As you'd expect.
Breath weapon, you do a breath weapon. It's based on what kind of damage you want to do with your dragon. And like most dragons, you wait a d4 rounds and then do it again.
You can do a Draconic Frenzy, 2 actions. Make a strike with their primary unarmed attack, and then 2 strikes with their secondary unarmed attack.
In any order,
if
but obviously you want to do the secondary ones second and third because they're agile.
Yeah. If any of them crit, then your Eidolon instantly recovers the use of their breath weapon.
Haha, and then it's 17th
very
level.
Draconic and convenient.
Once per minute, they can use Worm's Breath to do a more powerful breath weapon. It's double area and damage. So then Fae Eidolon are very castery. Because Fae is the only one where both of the types of Fae are dex-based. The Skirmisher Fae has a little more strength and con. And wisdom, whereas the trickster Fae has very high charisma. Yeah, it's a Fae and a little Nosai. They've got deception and nature. They've got their Fae gift spells, where they expand your primal magic with enchantment and illusion spells from the occult list, and they gain. That's kind of their first starting ability, is that you get these Fae gift spells, and your Eidolon gives the magical understudy summoner feat, despite not meeting the prerequisite to get some cantrips. Fae Mischief gives them the magical adept feat, despite not meeting the prerequisites for it. And then Fae Chicanery gives them the a contingency that is a 4th level spell from the primal or Fae gift list that is just a contingency, a little trick that the Fae knows how to use. So Plant is your Leshy. It's formed from the same disembodied fragments of nature's life energy that become Leshies. It specifically says that.
It's your Leshy! It could be a Guardian who is strong, or a creeping plant who is Dexy. Both of them have quite a bit of constitution, not so much in the int department. They generally have vine, branch, or root attacks, which makes sense because they're plants, and speak Sylvan. Their initial ability, Tendril Strike, is 1 action to allow the Eidolon to attack foes that would normally be beyond its reach. At 7th level, Growing Vines gives the reach trait to all of the Eidolon's melee unarmed attacks. So you have Growing Vines, and then you have Tendril Strike to extend the reach, and your Eidolon is getting a lot of reach. And at 17th level, you get Field of Roots, 2 actions. Your Eidolon can extend roots underground to entangle and possibly damage anything within your Eidolon's reach, which, again, we've established the Eidolon's reach can be pretty good. Your Eidolon is immobilized while the Eidolon's doing this because they're like extending their roots right in to mess with people. But then everything in that area has to make a save. Unless they critically succeed, they're at least going to be slowed. If they fail, they're also going to take damage. If they critically fail, they're immobilized and take full damage. At the end of each of their turns, take full damage again.
If they can't get out of the area.
They can't get out of the area, so yeah. Field of Damaging Roots.
It's a plant. Then last is Psychopunk. It's actually P is the end of the alphabet here.
Yes, it is.
And that's the Nosai that you were looking at before. So Psychopunk...
Beak, claw, fist, jaws, or unarmed attacks shaped like a weapon for the attacks. Because Psychopumps take a lot of forms. They're not all Nosai. Somebody might choose a different one.
They're not Nosai. Not all of them. You can be a Soul Guardian with 18 strength-based, and Scribe of the Dead is more dexterity-based and has more intelligence, too. They've got the Requiem language, the only language in the game that Linda made up the name of the language, and they have Intimidation and Religion as their skills. Their Spirit Touch ability adds either negative or positive damage depending on if it's a living creature or undead, and Ghost Touch to all of their attacks. Hidden Watcher, once per hour, has invisibility on you, the Eidolon, or both. If you target on both, if either one of you uses a hostile action, then it ends for both of you. That's why you might want to use it on only one of you if the other one's planning on using a hostile action. Then Spirit Taker is a 17th level ability that makes your Eidolon really, really good at handling bodiless spirits. They can see incorporeal creatures inside solid objects. They can smack incorporeal creatures inside solid objects. They can expel incorporeal creatures from solid objects. They can
affect creatures that are possessing other creatures, even if their body is elsewhere.
And if they destroy an undead, then they send it to the Boneyard for judgment. If it has a special ability like Rejuvenation or a Lich,
then it's got to attempt a counterattack check
against your spell DC to use its ability. Otherwise, go to the Boneyard, do not pass go. Do not collect 200 souls.
Or 200 pounds of diamond dust.
I don't even know what you're going to collect.
Whatever. Cool. So then the summoners got a bunch of feats as well.
They have a ton because they also have all these evolutions.
And for the Eidolons.
They can get advanced weaponry and add more traits to their weapons, or dual studies where you and the Eidolon actually split off and train in skills that the other one does not get. Energy Heart, where your Eidolon's heart beats with an energy type, and you can actually do damage that's an energy damage on one of your attacks and gain resistance.
Expanded Senses, where Eidolon gets low light vision and dark vision, as well as imprecise scent with a range of 30 feet. Extend Boost, to learn the Extend Boost Link spell and increase the number of focus points in your focus pool by 1.
Glider form, you can kind of slowly glide down towards the ground once you're up in the air. Meld into Eidolon, manifest the Eidolon, but you go inside of it in case your Eidolon is better at like climbing or swimming or whatever than you are. It's not like a power boost. It's not meant to replace the synthesis. That'll have to be a class archetype, but it is an option that that occasionally is a very good option to take and is not always your default. An unfettered Eidolon
lets you have an unfettered Eidolon, like Rogue Eidolon.
Yes, and it just goes off wherever it wants, and it doesn't have to worry about that 100-foot range.
And like all the other things that give you focus spells, it increases the size of your focus point pool.
Second level, you can get more movement speed on your Eidolon, make it amphibious with swim speed and breathing underwater.
You can teach your Eidolon some cantrips.
Yep. That's the one that the Fae gets at first level for free. You can give it a ranged attack. You can gain a reinforced Eidolon link cantrip that will buff up your Eidolon's defenses. Steed form, where your Eidolon is an effective mount, and so you don't have problems for having two intelligent creatures trying to move around at the same time.
Yes.
Bloodletting claws, where your Eidolon's critical hits deal persistent bleed.
Defend Summoner, where the Eidolon can block attacks against you, getting you a circumstance bonus to AC until the beginning of your next turn. So your Eidolon is basically being like, I am the shield. Very fitting, certainly, for the Devotion one.
Yep. Dual Energy Heart, where they've got a second energy, and your unarmed attack deals energy damage, actually versatile for the two energies, and they get both resistances. Lifelink Surge, which is a link spell for your Eidolon that surges your lifelink.
Reactive Dismissal, when your Eidolon would take damage, you can, as a reaction, dismiss your Eidolon to reduce the damage it takes. That just means that you need to wait until after the end of your next turn before you can summon it again, because you've shunted the Eidolon out pretty forcefully in order to protect the Eidolon from that damage.
Well, and you. You typically do this when the difference between Reactive Dismissal and not doing Reactive Dismissal is the difference between whether you'd fall unconscious.
Yes.
Shrink Down, let your Eidolon shrink to size small if it needs to from whatever its normal size is. Skilled Partner gives...
And flip back if it wants to become normal size again.
Skilled Partner gives skill feats to your Eidolon, which can be very handy if you want them to use particular skill feats.
Tandem Movement, pretty useful and straightforward. One action, you and your Eidolon use a single action to stride.
Yep, I definitely use that on my Summoner. Vibration Sense gives you an imprecise tremor sense, or if it's aquatic, an imprecise wave sense, and if it's amphibious, it gains both. Blood Frenzy.
For blood-letting claw Eidolons, if they just dealt bleed damage to a living creature,
they go in a frenzy!
Yes, they can gain Boost Eidolon and gain temporary hit points equal to the level, but take a penalty to AC.
It's very similar
very
to what
similar
the
to
Wrath Phantom has.
Very similar to the Wrath Phantom,
except
but
they have to deal bleed damage.
yes, and you can get it on anybody.
Eidolon's Opportunity is kind of like an attack of opportunity that the Eidolon takes.
Yes. Eidolon's Wrath, Eidolon gains the Eidolon's Wrath focus spell.
Explodes, dealing damage. Just make sure you're not right next to it.
Yes.
Master Summoner lets you turn one of your slots into 2 slots for summoning and incarnate spells, which, hey, is one of the only feats in the game that gives you another spell slot of your highest level.
Yes.
That I don't know if there's any other feat that gives you another spell slot.
Not that I know.
Oh,
of,
yes.
Is there?
The 20th level capstones for
the
spellcasters
capstones
to get a
for the
10th level feat.
Yeah, but until
this is a 6th level spell.
Also, like...
Or 6th level feat,
also,
not spell.
like, yeah, that's not the same level that you first gained the spell.
There certainly aren't other feats in the similar level range that can scalingly give you one at your top level. Obviously, there's a limitation, which is that they both have to be summoning or incarnate spells. Ostentatious Arrival is when you manifest your Eidolon, you use that as a mana magic to make it blow up in the emanation.
There is a question of what's the mechanical significance of having both dark vision and low light vision on something as opposed to just dark vision?
So, if you have both dark vision and low light vision, then you are able to see in color out to a larger distance. Or in certain situations, whereas dark vision is black and white. Mm-hmm. If you're a fetchling, then you don't care, because you have a dark vision that already can see in color. But everybody else can't. Phase Out is a 3-action ability that your Phantom Eidolon can use that makes it gain extra resistance, but it can't really attack as much, because it's like partially out of phase with reality. Tandem Strike is a 2-action ability where you and your Eidolon both strike with no multiple attack penalty. It's great if you've gotten martial proficiency and you've got like some kind of giant greatsword build. And so, like, most people can double slice if they're a fighter, but most people can't double slice with a greatsword and an Eidolon's attack.
Yes.
You admittedly have a bad proficiency, so it's your proficiency is enough lower than your Eidolon that it's usually kind of like taking the -2 for double slicing with 2 non-agile weapons, like if you use 2 long swords with double slice. But again, usually that offhand weapon isn't a great sword.
Boost summons, if you're somebody who likes summoning, perhaps someone who just took that Master Summoner feat. When you cast Boost Eidolon, it also boosts all your summoned creatures within 60 feet.
Handy.
For more summoning fun.
Constricting Hold lets you, when you've grabbed or restrained something, just have your Eidolon just keep constricting it and forcing basic fortitude saves to take damage. Energy Resistance is going to increase your Energy Heart's energy resistance, and if you have dual Energy Heart, increases both of them to a very high amount.
Hulking size, your Eidolon grows substantially. The Eidolon becomes large instead of its previous size, and its reach increases to 10 feet. This doesn't change any of its other statistics. I know that there was some question that we saw, like, with sanctioning and stuff with this for additional resources. People were like, well, does that mean that it gets bigger if it was already large? It says it becomes large, so it does what it says. You become large.
Also, there were none that were already large.
Yes.
Magical Adept was the one the Fae picks up at level 7. It gives you a second and first level spell for your Eidolon.
It may have been a different one that had that question of, like...
the one that shrinks down to small if you were already small?
Yeah.
It's like, it doesn't do anything. It's
but if you have miniaturized, then you can shrink down to tiny. Yes.
Just be a little teeny Eidolon. Burrowing Form gives you a 15-foot burrow speed. Merciless Rend is a rend after you hit with 2 consecutive strikes with your secondary attack and deal slashing damage. You then rend your foe and do automatic secondary damage. So it's a pretty handy combination. It also doesn't technically say that it has to be like the most recent attack. So you theoretically could use it on after a Draconic Frenzy, for example. Obviously, if you do that, then your summoner is left with 1 action, but it's still pretty good.
Yeah.
Because you know that you hit with 2 of your consecutive strikes with your secondary attack this turn, and so you only use it when you need it, and you get a free hit, and if you don't need it, you can't use it. It's a great feat for that reason. Protective Bond is the one I was talking about before. It is absurdly good. As a reaction, you and your Eidolon both roll your saves against a damaging effect, and you take the better success result, essentially. If you take different amount of damage, you take the lower amount of damage instead of the greater amount of damage. This is very good. It's especially good if you and your Eidolon have like very different stat arrays. Like if your Eidolon has much better dex or wisdom than you, or vice versa, then you can wind up just having one of you protect the other by a lot with protected bond. It's good anyway.
Pushing attack lets you add the push action to one of your Eidolon's unarmed attack to shove enemies away. Speaking of juggling things around, you can spend one action to transpose and just teleport.
Switch places
with your Eidolon.
Weighty impact just knock an enemy down automatically with your after hitting. Very, very, very powerful. Flexible transmogrification is going to give you an Eidolon evolution feat of 6th level or lower that you just pick every time during preparations.
It's a 12th level feat that's basically like, would you like any 6th level Eidolon feat?
Every day.
Every day, whichever one's most useful. Here you go.
Do it. Grasping limbs, where you auto grab your opponent after you hit. Extremely powerful. Link focus, where that's the typical level 12 get back to focus points when you refocus. Yep. Summoner's Call is
kind of the opposite of the one where you send your Eidolon away.
That's when you or your Eidolon would take damage from a foe or hazard. You bring your Eidolon up to you. I mean, it still takes you still take the damage, but if your Eidolon is out scouting and gets hit, you could just immediately pull it back so it doesn't get hit more.
Or like I could see, you could pull the Eidolon back. I could also see something where you set things up to, you could also pull the Eidolon in if your Eidolon was like hanging behind or whatever. And between that and transpose, you've got a lot of mobility options for deciding who's gonna go where.
So towering size makes you huge with a 15-foot reach. So if you're also a plant, you can have a 20-foot reach that goes up to 25 when you do that one action that.
And then your root thing can just be even more ridiculous.
It's like a 20-foot radius. It's enormous, and you're huge. So that's actually a very wide area because it's like a 3x3 with a 20-foot radius around it.
Yes.
Airborne Form, where you just flat out fly. Resilient Shell, where you just gain physical resistance equal to your con modifier. So that's going to be like around 5 the level after you get it.
Share Eidolon Magic. If your Eidolon gained spells from Magical Understudy, Magical Adept, and Magical Master, then you and your Eidolon can share those usage.
Yep.
More flexibility in your casting.
More flexibility about who's casting it.
Yes.
Spell Repelling Form +1, all saves versus magic on your Eidolon. Effortless Concentration. It's a feat a lot of casters have. It's good for summoning people. You're a summoner.
Ever Vigilant Senses. Your Eidolon gains a +2 circumstance bonus to perception. Can't be flanked except by higher level creatures. Can see invisible creatures and objects. And anytime they move within 30 feet of an illusion that could be disbelieved, then you get a free secret check for your Eidolon to disbelieve it.
Yep. Trample, where they just trample. It's a powerful monster ability. Move double their speed through everything. Trample, dealing some damage. Pretty neat. And then you probably act together to trample, and then you do a one-action thing.
Yes.
Link Wellspring is the typical 18th level feat for 3 refocus points. Magical Master is an 18th level feat that fills out all the rest of the spells for your Eidolon from level 1 to 7.
True Transmogrification, if you just are the kind of person who really likes preparing as many things as possible, being super flexible, you can swap out any number of your evolution feats for a different evolution feat at the appropriate level for which you meet the prerequisites every day.
Yep. Eternal Boost, which is your link with your Eidolon is so intense that you're always boosting it. You're permanently quickened to boost. Legendary Summoner, where you sacrifice a 9th level spell slot to gain 2 spots from your Master Summoner feat. They're actually 10th level slots.
Yes.
So that means that, unlike Magus, who just doesn't get 10th level spells, you can actually have 2 10th level spells, the same number of 10th level spells as another class has. Now, the issue is that you don't actually have any 10th level spells in your repertoire, so you're going to need to find 10th level summoning.
Yeah, that doesn't let you, qualify for...
But fortunately, you can do a 10th level version of a summon spell, or
and generally summon spells are like, oh, it's a summon spell, and you just keep heightening it to...
In most cases, incarnate spells don't heighten, though, so it's not going to be as good for incarnate. And then Twin Eidolon is a 20th level feat where you just turn into your Eidolon and you get all of the... you've manifested your Eidolon. You also are your Eidolon. And then you just go to town on everything.
Yes.
So, additionally, that's it for the class. Let's talk about the
Summoner
archetype.
Yes.
So the summoner archetype is very interesting because it actually gives you an Eidolon that has, other than not getting the symbiosis ability and the transcendence ability, and you have to take an extra feat for the initial ability, it actually has everything else that the Eidolon has, other than that its attack and armor proficiencies do not scale as well as the regular
And the initial
Eidolon.
ability scores are
oh yeah, the initial ability score starts at 16 instead of 18, but by level 5 that changes. It goes to 18 and then you raise it, and then it's the same. It just is so that it doesn't it's not quite as accurate in combat by 1 as the summoner's Eidolon at levels 2 through 4. And then at level 5, it gets the stat up, but it also doesn't go up in proficiency, so it's 2 less accurate than the Summoner's Eidolon. So, you can get expert in, you can wind up getting expert for attacks for your Eidolon later on with the expert combat Eidolon, which also gives you expert in unarmored defense, too. So the thing about it is, it's never going to be just like, oh yes, I took this and now I have a character that hits as accuracy of a martial character on my wizard, because we weren't going to give you a character that hits with the martial accuracy on your wizard. But it does hit much better than, or at least somewhat better than your wizard, unless you really put a lot of strength in your wizard. And even then, there's only certain levels where your wizard even can have the same amount of strength.
And as usual, there's the feats that give you summoner feats,
well
as
the
feats
spells
that give you the spell casting. Yes.
But whether or not it's better at hitting things than your wizard, or let's say that it's good enough at hitting things that you want to use, like want to use it as a backup for someone else who doesn't have multiple attack penalty, that's not the main strength of it. The main strength is that it's there, and it may have very different ability scores than you.
Yes.
If it's a trickster fae or a tempter demon, it could have 16 charisma when you do not. If you're a half elf, for example, you might not have any charisma. You could have 10 as a half elf, and still you wouldn't need the prerequisite because you're a half elf, which lets you ignore the 14 charisma prerequisite. And so it's going to be 3 better than you at your charisma based skills in that case. Or if you have an intelligent Eidolon, it will have a bonus on intelligence based checks compared to you. So it has use in that regard.
So your Eidolon might be someone who's like a skill-based one, and that you're working. Are you working with sort of skills for that, or maybe like, hey, here's my reliable flank buddy, or any number of other things to complement your tactics.
Yep. So it really actually has most of the things that an Eidolon has, except it's just not going to give the full martial accuracy and AC.
So,
what about the archetypes for Summoner to take?
Yes.
Well, you said I took Beastmaster. I'm not sure I recommend it for most people because it's very action heavy. It's so action heavy.
It feels almost more like it's certainly powerful.
Oh,
but
yes.
But you're also like a little bit hedged in by having something that's so action intensive. Like, which things do you want to do each turn? So yeah, generally you probably want something that's not super action intensive.
But you still can pick things that like. Anything that is good at giving a little bit of healing that you can give to yourself, you can just do it in the back line and it heals your Eidolon.
Yes.
Obviously, things like medicine, given that your Eidolon is a different creature, you can like kind of get away with the fact that you're healing yourself and your Eidolon, and then it goes to your shared pool. Or at least that's what it looks like. So there's a lot of things that you can do that, and really, honestly, any archetype that's not as action intensive. And I'm making Beastmaster work, so it's super difficult, but I'm making it work. And I'm actually very strong with Beastmaster, but it's very difficult to manage it.
And you could certainly be like a sorcerer.
Oh yeah.
Who gets more benefit out of that charisma and has got more spell slots going around.
Yep.
And because you're not going to be casting, you would never cast 2 spells per turn anyway, just in general when you're a summoner. So that can really expand out your options there without
Oracle if you want. That's also charisma based, easy enough.
And both of those can have a nice thematic tie too. Like if you're a sorcerer whose bloodline is tied to the theme of your Eidolon, or an oracle whose curse is tied to the theme of your Eidolon.
If you are someone who kind of stays kind of near to your Eidolon, then you can wind up, like the Tandem Strike build or riding on your Eidolon, you can wind up with Champion Dedication.
Oh, yeah, I can totally see that.
So, here's what it gives you. It gives you armor, heavy armor, so that you can survive more easily in the front. And then, yes, Devotion Phantom, so if you get hit, the Devotion Phantom attacks them. And let's say you're kind of riding on your Devotion Phantom for some reason because you've turned it into like a...
Devotion
It's like a centaur.
Yeah.
And so you're always going to be next to each other because you're riding on. If you get hit, the centaur hits them. If the centaur gets hit, you hit them if you're a paladin or whatever, right? You get liberating step or some kind of shenanigans.
Yes.
And because you take champion's reaction, then you grab land hands from it as well for some extra healing, and it kind of has everything that you want if you can meet the strength prerequisite, and kind of that's the build that you're doing. And Nolamar says Martial and Bard are both good. Martial is tricky because of the action economy of it, but is good. Bard is also good. It's kind of always good. The one thing with Bard is that Inspire Courage is probably better in most groups than just doing a boost Eidolon, depending on your situation. Well, in some, but not others, it might be. But it's not as much of a gain over Boost Eidolon as it is for somebody who did not have a cantrip. So in that way, Bard is like a little bit weaker, but you easily meet the charisma requirements and you can get spells. So it's just as good as Sorcerer in that regard.
Oh, hey, thanks for giving a gift sub to Nolamar, Elf, and thanks for paying the gift sub forward, Nolamar.
Yes. The hype train
cool.
is close, apparently. We're one away from it if one different person does something within 45 seconds. So that's what we have in terms of all of these archetypes. So, shall we say goodbye to YouTube?
Yes, let's.
Bye, YouTube.
Bye.